Hi everyone, welcome to Canine Wellness Online. Today I wanted to share a little video for you from a client that asked a question about one of my videos. She asked me a question about her dog Ruby, who had TPLO surgery about 10 days ago. And when she went in to have the surgery, the surgeon told her that the other leg, in this case her right leg, was partially torn. And what the owner asked me was, she asked me, does she need to have surgery for the partial tear? Because on the good leg, the right leg, she said that the dog is not limping and the muscle obviously has gotten very strong. There was a second question, which will be in another video I'll post in a day or two. So I thought this was a great question because I get asked this on a weekly basis from owners coming in here having TPLO surgery. So there's a number of considerations that you have to have if you don't want to do surgery on a partially torn cruciate ligament. First of all, and probably the most important thing, is very often what I've learned over 20 years is that the leg you actually have surgery on is usually the second leg. So what I mean here is that dogs, because they have four legs, they're able to compensate without us even noticing. And so I think what happens a lot of the time is the dog, in this case, Ruby, was probably ever so slightly lame on the right leg, and so started using the left leg more and more until one day the ligament said, I can't do this anymore, and it tore. So I think that's one of the main reasons, or at least in my practice, I see that a lot. And I should also sort of mention here is that when they say it's partially torn, the way that they can test that, obviously we know that an x-ray really doesn't tell how torn a ligament is. The surgeon only knows how torn it is, for the most part, once they go into that joint and see whether it's frayed or it's torn. And I actually will be doing another video of actually how that works. But for today, what they're really looking at is, as everybody's heard, is cranial drawer. And another thing that's not as heard about, but in my world is the most important, is something called tibial thrust. And what those two tests do, actually I'm going to show you with my willing assistant, who today has been for a nice long walk, so he's going to be a good boy today, aren't you? So basically what they're doing is they're looking at the knee and they're assessing with cranial drawer how, this is a femur, this is a tibia, and they're looking at this and this. So that's what's called cranial drawer. So on your dog, excuse me, thank you, is they're taking that knee, they're putting their hand here, and they're seeing if there's any movement. Thank God he has no movement. The more important test to me is something called tibial thrust, because in the TPLO surgery, they don't actually fix this cranial drawer, that movement. What they do is they change the angle of the joint, which I'll get to in a moment. So they change the angle of that joint so that that ligament is not really required any longer. So what they do for tibial thrust, and why I like this test better, is because it's telling us when the dog weight bears how much stability or lack of stability there is in the joint. So for tibial thrust, I'm putting my finger on the pad of his feet and I'm mimicking him pushing off, and I look at this is the patellar tendon, I've got my finger sitting on it and I'm looking to see how much movement there is. And again, he has no movement. Thank you. But if there's movement on my finger, then I know that there's some degree of instability of that knee. Now, I have had some dogs come in here and I do that, or I do cranial drawer, and it's like two sheets in the wind. It's moving around. It's like, yeah, this is completely torn, and I know it's torn. So that's another consideration with regards to conservative management, is how torn it is. My rule of thumb is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in Ruby's case, Ruby really apparently is not limping that much, and the leg, hello, would you like a little belly rub? Ruby is not limping, and in fact the muscles are probably huge on the other leg. And in the rehab world, my world, it's all about muscle supporting a joint. So I would look at that, and the surgeon had said, oh, we can do it in 4 weeks. Well, yeah, that'd be a nice, few years of car payments for him. But these days, with things the way they are post-COVID, it's like we don't have an extra $8,000 to $10,000 unless we really have to do it. I would be remiss if I did not say what some of the cautions are of conservative management. First and foremost, if you are a person that especially plays chuck it or any kind of repetitive strain type sport, frisbee, where a dog is running and turning, is definitely not something, if you're doing conservative management, is not going to be something you want to continue doing. And that's because you're going to be doing micro tearing of that already partially torn ligament, and then eventually it's going to give way. Now, having said that, it may not ever tear, or even if you don't do any of those things, it might tear. Like, I'm sure the surgeon has told anybody who's had knee surgery, or if you read any published information, that within a year, most dogs, about 65%, tear the other leg. Now, that brings me to my next point, is I have a theory about why the other leg tears, aside from some genetic predispositions. But when we think about the fact that what they're actually doing is changing the conformation of your dog, so by cutting this and changing the angle to a different angle, it means that that leg, which your dog was born with, is no longer the same as the other leg. And I've done research high and low to find papers on anybody who's hypothesized this, and I can't find anything. If anyone finds anything, let me know, because I want to read it. But what I think happens is, to add to a dog that may have already had a partially torn cruciate or not, and you've got now unequal distribution of weight because you've changed the conformation of your dog, then that puts undue strain on the good leg, which now becomes the leg that eventually tears. That is a very long answer for a very short question. Stay tuned for my next video, and please like and describe. And please like and subscribe, not describe. Describing is something different. And this is what my working dog gets, is a little Benny bully. Thank you.